Episode 6 of Africa is called The Future, and it's all about conservation stories from across Africa. So the first segment involves black rhinos. We talk about how endangered they are, how they're really under threat, and we basically see park rangers out, darting them, doing health checks, moving them around. And it's alright, it's stuff you've seen before and since, but as rhinos are probably the most famous endangered animals in Africa, it was definitely worth talking about, so I thought that was fine, a good way of opening the episode. Then we go on talking about how food chains are impacted, how that impacts the top predators like lions. We explore the relationship between the lions and the Maasai, which is quite interesting. I think that's kind of well known, but it's probably definitely worth talking about because they're the community people that live closest to lions and are the most impacted by them. And it was interesting looking at the shifting in their relationship because obviously killing lions was a big rite of passage for especially young Maasai men. Now things have become a bit more progressive. The Maasai are realising that they kind of have to look out for the lions because there aren't that many of them left. So we see that relationship has shifted from them killing lions to them protecting them. So yeah, that was alright as well, interesting enough, and probably one of the more interesting parts of the episode for me. Then we talk about gorillas. We see gorillas are living in a more fragmented part of Africa now, because before they had much more forest, and now they're restricted to pockets of forest. We see how tourism's kind of helping out. It's interesting to see how gorillas, even at that point, were coming back from the brink of extinction. I think gorillas were pretty much famous for being almost on the way out, but obviously that's not the case anymore, and even in 2013 things were looking up for them, so yeah, that was fine as well, I guess. Probably a more forgettable part of the episode if I'm honest. And we talk about elephants and Amboseli. We relive that really harrowing sequence of the mother elephant looking after its calf as it's dying in the drought. Pretty horrible, but we see the local people looking after the elephants, helping them out. It's fine as well. I feel like there's a lot of that in this episode, people just helping animals, and that is, conservation, I suppose, that, is to be expected. But, it kind of feels a little bit samey for a lot of the episode, I think. We talk about geladas as well. I find it interesting that geladas are literally on the poster for the series. They were heavily involved in the marketing, and this is the only time they appear in the series, and it's only kind of brief. We basically talk about how there were many more species of gelada around Africa, and now they're really restricted to the Ethiopian highlands. You don't really find them anywhere else. I kind of just figured that that's where they've always existed, and I didn't really imagine that they had much of a presence throughout the rest of Africa, so that's interesting. And we talk about the spread of the Sahara Desert. Obviously, we talked about that a lot in the last episode, so it's pretty much fresh in our minds. And we explore the initiative to plant basically a green belt across Central Africa to prevent the spread of the Sahara. And we see it was kind of taken off at that time. I know it's still in the works, but I don't know how much progression they've had with it. This is like almost 13 years later, so you kind of think they maybe made some progress. I don't know, but that was interesting enough as well. We talk about deforestation in the Congo, how bad that is, how that part of Africa is probably one of the most important parts, just because it's essentially the lungs of the earth and it's so diverse. For me, one of the best parts of the episode was the stuff with the turtles. I found it interesting how they talked about how global warming could impact the turtles because temperature impacts the sex of the hatchlings. So obviously, if temperature rises, then they will all be females. So actually, we could get to a point where most of the sea turtles are actually females and they actually just can't reproduce. Interesting, I knew about that, but it was good that they talked about it. And I actually really like the turtle sanctuary more than the other stuff, I think. There's that one turtle where it was severely injured by boats and they were taking her out to sea to help her exercise. It was really nice. Unfortunately, she did die, so that wasn't very nice. But we did see them saving other turtles, and I thought it was just nice. I think it was the bit of the episode that kind of warmed my heart the most, so that was really good. And we talk about Gorongosa. Obviously, we saw that in the Cape episode, and we didn't spend much time there. This gave a much more in-depth look at that, because it was actually a massively thriving tourist place, because there was loads of animals there. In Mozambique, it was one of the most popular places for wildlife. However, after the Civil War, basically all the big animals, apart from the crocodiles, were killed. And it was really interesting seeing footage of it then and now, how it's pretty much a barren wasteland because there was nothing there. It was this hotel where lions used to climb over for a lookout, and it was really popular with tourists. And well, the building's there's no lions there anymore. It was kind of sobering, I thought. And they were talking about how they were going to reintroduce things like ants and everything. And it was kind of important to look at the little animals because they're the ones that kind of run of the show. And we kind of get a final summary from Attenborough talking about, how we have to help Africa, highlighting the conservation stories across Africa. It's great seeing him again. And yeah, it's good. I think it's a pretty good way of ending things. For me, though, the best part of the episode is the diaries by a large margin for me, to be honest. It's basically them looking at this rhino called Elvis, and it's Attenborough next to him, and it's quite funny. Again, you forget how great Attenborough is. He's quite a funny guy, and his kind of witticisms throughout these series, especially ones that he presented back in the day, were always great. And there's a bit of that here, how he's not as sharp in his pins anymore when the rhino's coming towards him. Really cool stuff, I really like that. The best bit though is at the end with the baby rhino that's blind. That's a pretty famous sequence now. I think it's the most famous sequence from the series apart from the giraffes. And it's Attenborough just doing a wee bit of dialogue with this baby rhino. It's really nice. And then the wee rhino starts calling out to him like wee squeaking noises. And he's calling back to it. And they kind of have a little bit of a dialogue because obviously it can't see. So it's basically responding to sound primarily. And it's lovely. It's a really nice sequence. It's, again, as I say, it's pretty memorable. Most people, I think, are aware of that sequence, even if they don't know it's from this series. It's pretty great. It's a pretty great way of ending the series as a whole, I think. Yeah, I really, really like that. Definitely the best part of the episode for me. So yeah, this episode is good. It's the weakest one, easily, of the whole series. These episodes are always the weakest ones, though. The conservation stories, especially at this time, they were always alright. This one's probably one of the better ones, to be fair, but yeah, it does suffer from the same thing of kind of repetitiveness. And I think because the rest of the series is pretty fascinating, you see loads of animals you either seen before doing weird stuff, or entirely new ones that you hadn't really seen before. This is just kind of retreading the same ground. We've seen all this stuff before, but it's still fine to see. And there aren't too many highlights for this one, but the obvious highlight is at the very end of the episode with Attenborough the baby rhino. It's great stuff. So yeah, this was the last episode of Africa. A great series. I think this is one of the best series for me. It pretty much completely subverted my expectations, because I went in thinking, oh, it'll be Africa. We've seen all this stuff before, and it absolutely was not that. It still holds up today. I still really like rewatching it. Every episode's pretty much as good as it could have been, I think, for me. Yeah, it's a really good series. And yeah, I will be doing my top 10 list next time, so look forward to that. And as this is the last episode of the series, let me know what you'd like me to talk about next, what other series you'd like me to talk about in the future. And yeah, as ever, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, or don't if you don't want it. It's perfectly fine. And I'll see you next time for my top 10 video, and goodbye.